So, with the stance, there's obviously the centers that we've discussed and talked about. There's the hara center, which is the physical center of the body. Anything physically demanding needs engagement from this region. It's the foundation. It's the foundation of stability and balance. So any strenuous activity comes from the hips, the center here. Physically speaking, the heart center is the soul center, the center of circulation, of love, of distribution, of dispersion. So the energy concentrates in the hara center and is distributed from the heart, as you might imagine. The Vishuddhi chakra of the neck is another powerful center, as is the brain, which we've talked about. The neck really does give a lot to posture of stance. So for example, the moment you've engaged the hips, activated the diaphragm through the breathing exercises, this enhances circulation. Full exhale and deep breathing in general. It's important not to think too much about all the details of this, but this is just an overview. The Vishuddhi chakra, it allows you a certain introspection to just feel what you're doing, whereas this hara center is more physical, so it's more based on biomechanics and physiology, whereas this is an intuitive inner sense. Obviously they're all linked, so there's a lot of interaction, but this is just a basic idea. So the neck is a really important center for directing the body in terms of which way you're going, and upright posture, as well as intuitive sense of what's going on. This intuitive sense will allow you to physically move where you need to go. Because if the opponent doesn't know what they're going to do, they're in a fit of rage, then you don't know what they're going to do. You have to try and feel it instead of see the signs. When you've seen the sign physically, you've seen the punch, that's often too late. It's not bad, but we can do better. We can just sense from our own understanding when we're going to be attacked. So all these centers interacting, led from the neck chakra, Vishuddhi, the center of the neck, the door of muteness, as it's been called, because it requires you to listen inwardly. This will organize the rest of the stance more physically. This is one way in. Whichever center you're using to actually move and concentrate on will have its benefits. So these are all just ways in. So when you are concentrating, it's very easy to concentrate on one thing only. So you will decide for yourself which one of these centers, or anything with a complete concentration, is a good center. But these are, traditionally speaking, the ones that are understood to be beneficial in the more spiritual inner arts of martial arts. Now, when you found your center, it's time to apply it as intensely as possible. The level of intensity you bring to the stance will determine how effective it is. If you give 100% focus to the center and to the situation, the work involved, then it all depends on you, how effective your style is, how effective your combative energies are. The opponent can bring out certain aggressiveness in us, but at the end of the day, we need to bring out the best in ourselves by really lighting up from within rather than being lit by somebody else and manipulated. Now obviously it's easier said than done, but this is the way I see it, and how I understand it is really the reality for me. You may or may not agree, but it's worth trying, and all I ask is that you just try and see the relevance of what I'm saying. So in the stance, intensity is the key. It's very hard to be intense in a very floppy, disinterested way. So what I'm saying is you've got to be alert, but not in an exhausting way. You might from time to time need to mentally strain, but in general when you're training, it's a good idea to effortlessly give that intensity with this inner awareness that isn't a forced tension. It's a loose tension of ease. It's very hard to go wrong if you hold on to that as the basis of training rather than the technical correctness of what you're doing. So everything needs to be maximal involvement, maximal intensity, and you give 100% to the training. If you're in your stance, you're moving, there's 100% involvement and engagement. Now this can be translated more widely to general behaviour in and outside of training, but that's a topic for another occasion, and it depends on how far you want to take this stuff. For some people, a few minutes, a few hours will be enough. For others, that's never enough, and it becomes a day and night ceaseless activity. So maximum intensity in what you're doing is key here. So it can be on and off like a switch, if necessary, like children do. They go from playing, seriously, they're joking the next moment. This is the ease at which, at the highest level of functioning, intuition can switch on and off and become a useful tool rather than one that overwhelms you inside. So to summarize, it's intensity of concentration. This is the concentration center. The energy in the Hara center allows you to do incredible physical work. The heart center there's a certain lift there and a sinking into the Hara center. The heart must sink into the earth, as it has been said. Simply means there's a raise of the chest, a sinking down, a heaviness and a lightness. There's two elements there which counteract each other yet form a unity. This is very important, that there's this dual aspect of unity. The Vishuddhi and the third eye, these coordinate intelligently the activities of the heart and body. Mind, heart and body, body, mind and soul. This all means you act with intelligence, will and intensity. Thought, feeling and activity all should unite in their own way. If any of these act separately, there's a reduced amplification. If they're all on, then there's an unstoppable intensity there. Each one has its own direction, either pulls or pushes or lifts, but together they can expand, work together, and all reach where they need to go. If there's too much downward pull, nobody's satisfied. If there's too much lift, then there's no longer any grounding. So balance is the key here, and the upper centers, the higher centers of the brain and spine, These coordinate intelligently the more lower aspects, the Vishuddhi and the third eye, the neck and the brain, are really very in contact with each other, because the brain's first port of call, the intelligence first relay point with the body, is the neck. So this covers some of the basics. It takes a while to sink in, but I think this covers the general principles of the stance. Technically speaking, there's an adaptability to the stance because it incorporates the principles. The physical expression of these principles will vary depending on whether it's karate, boxing, or whatever. So the point of this video is really not to go into details. The devil is in the details because it strays from the principles. However, these hold true across disciplines. The key point is to make your stance flexible, adaptable, and useful to the situation, whether that's sport, the street, throwing, punching, kicking, or more broadly speaking, everyday life.